Welcome to Classical Chats. I'm Tiffany, I'm a classical pianist, also the host of this video series where I talk to all kinds of people who love classical music. Also the founder of Together with Classical, a nonprofit charity dedicated to you and everyone who love classical music and dedicated to uniting everyone in our shared passion. Today we have an orchestra conductor living in Germany right now, Anna Castro-Grinstein. She is not only a conductor, but she's very passionate about bringing classical music to people. In quarantine, she started doing YouTube and a podcast in Spanish. So I'm very much looking forward to how she tries to bring classical music, especially opera music, to people.
Hi, Tiffany. Really excited to be here and be able to talk to you.
Thank you. I'm excited to hear about all that you're doing because you're a conductor, but you also started a YouTube and then you also started a podcast. So I'm excited to hear how everything came to be. And let's start from the very beginning. How did your journey with classical music start?
I come from a very artistic family, but not in music. But my mom was or is a choreographer, and my dad is an actor, and they have a small theater back in Argentina. And so I always was around a lot of art stuff, and they would, take me to their rehearsals and to their shows. And so what they would notice is that I was always kind of like singing the tunes of whatever the show had, which was also really bizarre because they were really, modern. It wasn't like an easy thing to be, singing
How
the
do you
tune
sing
for.
that? Wow.
I don't know. It stuck to this day. I kind of remember all those, weird sound mixes that my mom's plate had. And so they figured out that, I must like it. And I started actually with piano. And I did piano for a lot of years parallel to school because there we don't have a lot of music education in the school. So I, went extra hours to this other music school. My mom similarly did the choreography for an opera performance. So I, went along to a lot of rehearsals with her, and that really hit me. I remember that very clearly, that my friends would call me, this sounds terrible, but do you want to do something? I was like, no, I really want to go to these rehearsals with my mom because I just wanted to see, and it was Carmen as well. And Carmen has this beautiful choir for kids. And so
Yeah.
I would see these kids that were kind of my age, singing that bit. So I really loved it. And from then on, I was more into listening to recordings of orchestras, and I liked playing the piano, but I felt much more connected to just the sound of the orchestra and to the experience of theater making. And so I can't remember how, but suddenly I was studying conducting. I don't remember the transition, but I remember thinking, oh, the orchestra sound really cool, and I just want to be there. And I couldn't even pick an instrument. It wasn't like, oh, I want to play violin or something like that. It was just, I want to be in the orchestra somehow, and that's what I came up with.
Oh, wow. So, how has your process been like? I mean, you're still conducting and you started from that background of getting to know the opera through your mom, really. It inspired you to start your How I Met Opera. Is that what it is called?
Oh yeah, How I Met the Opera. I try to make it, I don't know if you caught it, but it's like How I Met Your Mother. The idea was to sort of mix, popular pop things that you would recognize and kind of go like, it's the
That was a
same.
good show.
But yeah, no, well, so then I did all my studies in conducting in Argentina, and then I moved to Germany where I'm right now, and I did my master's in conducting, and then I started some projects, and then Corona hit. And when I was stuck at home, I sort of thought, okay, maybe now's the time, because I always really, watch YouTube like we all do. And I always really did think there's not enough of us and of what we do out there, and it's so cool. I can't come up with another word really. And pretty much I just, every time I go to the opera and I see the amazing stagings with things that fall from the sky and a car that comes in, and singers that are floating and meanwhile singing incredibly, and meanwhile the music is great and the plot is, like going to watch a movie, I sort of sit there and I think, I feel like there's that many people that would enjoy this legitimately. It's not, oh, I want to, put opera out there because it's what I like. I really feel that a lot of people would love it, but somehow they might not feel invited, or they might have a different idea of what it is, especially with what it's now, because there are that many stagings of opera and that many, visuals of opera in a way. So you can go and see a very traditional staging, like, as if you choose to see a Victorian era movie, or you can go see a very modern staging. So there is really something for everyone. So I really thought, well, I'll give YouTube a go. I watch YouTube. I feel like it's a channel in the which I could communicate this. And so I started in quarantine, like we all did, start our small projects, or, whatever we could find to communicate what we love. Mm-hmm. And so I did the YouTube channel, the How I Met the Opera, which is in English, and then a podcast with a conducting friend of mine that is in Spanish. And it's the same idea. We talk very, like this, in a very normal to 30-year-old people type of way, about stuff that we really like about music and that we feel other people would like too.
So what is your approach to introducing classical music to people, or opera in particular, to all kinds of people who might not otherwise listen to classical music?
I actually feel that opera is even easier than, for example, perhaps symphonic music or piano or anything, because it has a story. So there is a very direct, entry point, meaning if you like dramas or comedies or political things, you can choose something that is to your liking. Of course, there's, the language, even though there are plenty of operas in English, or, there's also people that speak Italian, and so the opera is in their language. So it really depends. But a lot of all opera houses, have subtitles, which is something that I realized not a lot of people really knew. When I made the channel and I went, around YouTube to comment and interact with people, I was surprised that a lot of people was like, oh, what about the language? And when I said the thing about the subtitles, they actually would write, okay, maybe I'll give it a shot. And I really do feel like this is our fault in a sense, not those people's fault. There's no reason why they should know this if we're not communicating it good enough. You know what I mean? Like when we advertise our operas or our productions, I feel there must be some sort of disconnect there, because that was the number one question or comment that I got, that I was shocked, as well as I can see you are too.
Yeah, I mean, my experiences at the opera, I always remember the screen is here with the words, and I'll be like, ooh, ooh, ooh. Or I would look in front of me, because it's a bit better to look at the subtitles from that eyesight level. Yeah, I've also seen projection screens on the side of the stage. I've seen that also. And that's interesting that people think the language would be the barrier to go into opera.
Yeah. And of course, it's kind of like going to the movies, going back to that. You can go to the movies and see a movie and think, well, that was a terrible movie, or I didn't enjoy that movie. But you wouldn't say, I'm never going to the movies again. And it's the same idea with opera. Like you might go and see an opera that's a ridiculous comedy that, you find completely non-believable, which is fine. I love those, but I understand. And so it's like, well, that's not really my cup of tea. But then you have operas that are just drama from the beginning to the end. And like I said, you have stagings that make it look like, dressed completely normal or brought to some today issue. And then you have the ones with the, fluffy costumes. And you can sort of, obviously within whatever you are, and this is kind of a pre-corona thing, to say, go to the opera. But even now that we're stuck, it's easier than ever. We have so many stuff online that you can, give a go. And I also feel sometimes operas, like symphonic concerts, maybe they're too long. That's okay. You can watch it in 2 sittings if you're at home. Or if you go to a concert and you feel distracted for a second, that's okay. Like when I'm listening to music, sometimes I, get a thought, and sometimes that's the point of it, that it maybe makes you think about something because it triggers some sort of emotion or memory, and that's fine. And I feel like, you just have to allow yourself to go and see how you feel about it, of course, within, whatever you are, and, what you can do. And if not, you can watch it online, which is obviously not as cool as impressive, but it's an entry point. And I really think there is something there that you will enjoy. There's so much opera, it's crazy. So there has to be something, statistically, there has to be something that you will enjoy.
Do you have a favorite opera or some favorite operas?
I knew that kind of question was going to come, and I'm like, I don't have an answer.
People
No.
ask me that too, and so it's my way of asking it back, because it's also hard for me to answer something like that. It's so hard to pick one, but I don't know.
Sometimes it changes, sometimes you're like, oh, I will love this as the only thing and then it's like, oh no, this thing. But well, Carmen is very dear to me because it was that first opera that I mentioned, and it's also a great entry point because the music is very catchy. The plot is very simple, it's a very simple love jealousy story. Mozart wise, I really like Marriage of Figaro. It's ridiculous, but I love it with all my soul. I would hug the score if I could. It's just fun. With things like that, perhaps you can watch one act, say if you're watching it online, and then the other day watch another act, because it's 4 acts of misunderstandings. He's like hitting here and then comes from here, and it's like, what happened? So maybe you can watch it in chapters. And then
that's interesting. Never thought of watching an opera in different seatings, like you would watch a TV show with different episodes in a way. But
well, it's definitely
the modern way of experiencing classical music that is only possible nowadays with the online streaming.
Yeah, and a very kind of quarantine option and a realistic option, because sometimes people say, well, I don't have 3 hours to sit in front of a screen, and that might be true. We all have very different realities, and some people don't have 3 hours of leisure time, but perhaps you have 45 minutes and the other day another 45. And it's not that I'm trying to convince you to watch opera for my agenda. I really think that it just makes you, the philosophy concept of catharsis. That we go to the theater, in this case, watch it online, but if we could, we go to the theater to receive what the theater is giving us and sort of process our emotions through what we're seeing, and not push them out, because you're not supposed to get rid of them, but process them in a way. So sometimes I might see an opera, I might see Tosca that makes me very, very kind of tense because of what is happening, and I might like cry in the end, or release something, and you feel like you went through something that somehow was good for you.
Having said that, you think there are certain things that we should be able to promote more about certain aspects of classical music, whether it's just the simple fact that there are subtitles in operas and you can just go in and experience it and you don't have to worry about that language barrier, something as practical and kind of logistical as that, or something else. What do you think are the responsibilities that one should in trying to bring classical music out?
You mean like you and me, one should, like us as part of
maybe like people within classical music who already have the experience within classical music and are part of that culture. I mean, I don't want to say that there is a certain divide in any sense, but just, you and I have much more experiences in classical music than some random person on the street who doesn't listen to classical music. So
of course,
that's just what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know if I see it as a responsibility. I more think of it as something that we would want to do, because we want to make music for as many people as we can. And I also feel like this, that approaching someone that might not go to the opera can be very transformative for that person, perhaps even more so than for someone that has it as a regular part of the schedule. I have a feeling like the operas and classical music and the theaters, it belongs to everyone, especially in places where it also has a lot of, subsidy. Do you know what I mean? Like it really does belong to all of the citizens here. So we should all be able to enjoy it equally and benefit from it equally. So I think our responsibility, perhaps as part of the classical music, is just to maybe think outside the box and move with the times. It's sort of hard. Even for me, it's hard. Now it's like Instagram has reels and I'm like, what are reels?
I don't know how to function reels. Too confusing. I was never part of the TikTok thing and I still am not.
Yeah.
So that
So,
was
but I don't even mean that you have to be in every social media or anything like that. But yes, perhaps, I've read that there is an orchestra here in Munich that has started this idea, or they're trying out an app that you download, and when you go to see this symphony concert, the app regularly gives you little not tips but comments about where you're listening. So they encourage you to have the cell phone to get this information. Obviously this is a dangerous thing, because then you could go to Instagram and float out of the concert. Obviously everything needs to kind of find a happy medium. But maybe there is people that would like to go to a concert and get information because they don't know that Beethoven this and that, because they're not regular visitors of a concert and they don't have that much context, because why should they? We all study different things and focus on different things. So I think that is one idea that I sadly couldn't go to a concert and see how that works with the app. But I think at least thinking of those things, in a realistic way and in a way that is going to pay off in the end. Like perhaps you say, oh, I don't want someone to have their phone while they're in a concert. And ideally, I wouldn't either. But if that gets that person to come and then to come again, then perhaps in the long run, it's a great thing. So I think we just have to maybe be flexible and try different things and see how they work, but definitely try things and be creative. That's, artists, we're supposed to be creative. So it should be something that we can do.
It's interesting. I mean, you mentioned the integration of modern technology as a way of bringing new audiences into classical music. And this kind of brings back to a question that popped up during our conversation is, what are your thoughts on modern productions of opera? Because you mentioned a lot about Carmen, and that's also an opera that I really connected with when I was a kid. There is a video of me playing the toy piano along with Carmen because I don't know, I thought CEGC would match with one of the notes in the Carmen
That's
opera
sweet.
music. So I tried to trill with it, and it was a big part of my inspiration into playing the piano. So then I saw a very modern production in Paris a few summers ago, and they had like cars and guns, and it was a very weird experience, to be honest. So I'm curious what your thoughts are in seeing modern productions where they try to integrate more realistic or more connected to current fashion and even current events. Sometimes you see, I think the Met Opera did like a production where they changed some things to be more current with
today.
our modern values or something like that. So I'm curious what your thoughts are. Do you think that is the way to go, or yeah?
I think, for one, I think that nothing is black and white, which is, how arguments tend to go these days. It's like never or always. And I think, the answer is somewhere in the middle. But coming from theater, my dad being an actor and a director, I'm very used to think about, okay, what's the message of this opera? What is, in the text, what are they trying to tell us? What is Mozart trying to tell us with Nozze di Figaro, or actually Beaumarchais' play? But, okay, they're talking about class. They're talking about, how that works. They're also talking about, there's a lot of stuff underneath the funny situations, or, any opera that you take. So I think if the modern production is taking that core message and putting it simply in another time, or, with a car or a gun, or, instead of a sword, I think that's fine. I mean, I enjoy that. I want to see the message being the same. What I don't like is when they actually don't really do that. When they go, I want to put it in this context and this and that, and that message doesn't really work for what I want, and so it doesn't come through, So that is when I don't enjoy a setting, when I don't feel like what they wanted to tell us has been communicated pretty much. and it was just pretty, or had flying things or whatever it was. But I have no final reflection. I don't know what what they've told me. If I know what they've told me, then I'll see if I like it or not. But I consider it okay, But this is a very hot topic. I know a lot of people really dislike modern things. I really don't. It really depends for me. Like, there's a beautiful, this is super popular. Maybe you've seen the Ne Trev con Villason version of Traviata from the Salzburg Festival. It was like over 10 years ago. And it was kind of a production that was at the time very famous. And it's really abstract. Like, it's set in no time almost. You don't know when it's set. It's definitely not set in the 1800s. But it works really well because, there are a couple of main themes there about time and about
was it
death.
The one with like the white circle, like
and a huge clock.
Yeah, okay, I saw that at music class in university.
Yeah,
play that.
I really enjoy that. And I sometimes recommend that to people that I feel they might not like the dressy type of production, because I think that what they did with that production is convey messages. Like, the choir, instead of being men and women, they're all dressed as men, because the message is Violeta is an object of desire. She's there to sort of entertain and be this perfect hostess or whatever. And so they made that to enhance that. And so we understand this. Oh, okay, everybody is looking at her as this object, but what does she want? She wants a life and love, etc. So I'm like, okay, cool. I like them. But, I also think, like I said, nothing is black and white, and you might have not liked one modern. That doesn't mean you wouldn't like another one. It really depends on what the regisseur is thinking.
I agree with you. I think I actually completely forgot that was a special production that didn't adhere to the specific time period and the classiness that you would usually but like the whole extravagant designs of operas that you usually see. So in a way, I agree with you. I think that's actually a really good example of when it's well done, that it's a mix, that it finds the right balance so that it still keeps the message and keeps the discussion going without overbearing a certain perspective on something. So I would like to ask about your life as a conductor, aside from all the things that you do in trying to bring classical music to more people. How is it like being a conductor? That's a very bad but I understand.
Answer in 10 words. No.
Yeah, exactly. In 15 seconds. Social media. No, but I know these times you don't have the I want to say luxury even now, because in these times having a group together is a luxury. But I remember I saw I think it was like a Zoom thing where I forgot which classical music institution it came from, but these conductors were lamenting together about the lack of inspiration because they can't.
Oh yeah, I remember it was.
I forgot which one it was.
Maybe Papano and Karina Kanellakis. I saw it. Yeah. I was like, oh, if they're demoralized, what's left for me?
Yeah. So what's it like been for you? Because I had just talked to a composer, and she actually thought that she's found this time even more inspiring because she sees all the different reactions with people, and in a way that kind of inspires her to write even more. So I don't know, what's it like for a conductor, or for you?
The trickiest part, really, I would say, about being a conductor, but mostly also building your career as a conductor, because I'm still actively doing that, is that you don't get your instrument to practice at home. I sadly do not have a home orchestra that I can play 8 hours a day in general. So that's always, you really always have to put yourself up for opportunities constantly to never lose touch, because even if you get a couple of concerts a year, which is great and what you would expect at the beginning, there's still a lot of time where you're not in contact. So you always are looking for competitions or assistantships, opportunities to be in touch. And so quarantine has actually been really hard in that sense, because you feel very far away from your instrument, and it's, you can sit and look at scores and think, okay, well, one day, I will apply all of this. And in honesty, it is a good thing. The problem is that we're all finding it hard in quarantine to keep those goals that we don't know exactly when we can apply them. So I think this motivation thing really is, for everyone the same. Like, if you're practicing, you could practice all of the piano concerts of the world, during quarantine, but it is really hard to keep yourself going when you don't know exactly when you'll apply them, even though really, it will come. So, if you get a ray of concentration, it is good to go over repertoire and build it, because especially for conductors and for singers as well, a lot of first possibilities are jump ins. So and so couldn't make it, or so and so couldn't come, and so you have to jump in with not a lot of time. And for that, you have to have a base repertoire ready. It's not a good thing if you're learning a symphony in 2 days. It's doable, but it's not great. So if you have your little niche of repertoire at least pre-ready, then you can take those opportunities.
Definitely.
But it's a hard thing to encourage oneself to do that. And I sort of then took the other route, which was creating these new projects. And that in a way made me feel like I was still connecting to someone about music instead of being retrieved, on my own.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you about. I immediately think of squirrels hibernating, getting all the nuts, and be prepared. But
Yeah, I actually we have a lot of those squirrels around here, because in Germany they're the sweetest things, and you literally do see them,
but
putting all
that's
the
the
nuts.
same thing. That's all
Yeah.
I did when I was younger. I learned so much repertoire because I knew that this would possibly be something that would happen where I have to jump in for someone, and I actually did have to jump in for someone for within like a week of notice or something, and it's because I had that experience of gathering all the repertoire or nuts and preparing
Yeah.
for situations like this. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Do you have any advice as someone who is building their career as conductors? I mean, um, obviously you are saying that you should be prepared and studying also, even when you don't necessarily have the opportunities to be a conductor and really be involved in the conducting world.
I do have an advice, but it's not very applicable in Corona time, sadly. But to watch as many rehearsals from really good conductors as possible. And every single conductor will tell you this, to observe, to go see rehearsals. Like, even if you're not, I mean, ideally you're assisting a conductor, so you're a little bit more, checking balance and, actively, using your brain in a way, but also sitting, just saying, hey, when we're back to normal, just saying, hey, can I just go observe? I don't need anything, I'll just sit. It's really, really good. You have no idea how much you learn, because also, the process of rehearsing is a really important one, sometimes more important than the performance. If you're working with a really good orchestra, they might not need you too much for the performance. It's not like they need to see where the one is or any, like, they're great. So the rehearsing process and how you build an idea of what the message pretty much, or what you want to communicate is, and how you then communicate it to the musicians, verbally, non-verbally, is something that you can only learn doing it first, or at least watching someone do it, and thinking in your head, okay, well, that was a good approach, and blah, 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 and then just you keep all your tools, and hopefully when you get a chance, then you can use them.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that there aren't really rehearsal videos available for. I mean, I see some like really old ones with
Yeah.
Kelly Debachi, one of the greatest conductors, and you see snippets of his rehearsals. But yeah, I definitely agree. I also do that for concertos, and I really, when I had a really famous teacher, I would ask to go watch his rehearsals with orchestras, and it was very interesting for me to observe the relationship between the conductor and the soloist. And even when I go to concerts, I like to try to pick up some things from that. Thank you. I think I could talk to you for so much longer.
Same. Yeah, I'm really, really happy. I was really looking forward to chatting, and I knew it was going to be, like you said, we could talk for hours, and it was. So
Yeah.
thank you. It was really nice of you to reach out to the audience. I think that was something that really shows, what's at your core and what your channel does, and together with classical does. And so it's
Yeah.
great.
I mean, I think we need a platform where it's not just for the artists and for the amateurs or just people who once in a while listen to classical music. I think there should be something a bit more uniting. So
For sure.
that's
And
the
people,
hope.
we all want to connect to something, and we all do it in different ways and with different intensities. And, so yeah, it's great.
Thank you. That was really fun to talk to Anna. I think even though we don't play the same instrument, I mean, she doesn't play an instrument for her profession, but we still have kind of similar opinions about trying to bring classical music to more people who might not otherwise listen to it. So, thank you for tuning in to Classical Chats. If you've enjoyed this episode or have enjoyed any of our previous episodes of Classical Chats, please don't forget to subscribe and maybe even tell your friends, because the more subscribers we have here on this new channel, the more exciting it is for everyone else to come on and share their stories. See you next time. Bye!